transportation itself becomes part of survival. In regions where roads disappear into rock and dirt, donkeys and horses still carry firewood, food, and supplies between villages. Some children walk several hours through mountain paths just to attend schools built from mud bricks and stone. In isolated areas, people memorize dangerous routes through valleys where landslides and avalanches can block travel without warning. Truck drivers crossing mountain highways often spend days navigating narrow roads beside cliffs with no barriers, carrying fruit, carpets, livestock, and construction materials between cities and villages. In cities like Kabul, Kandahar, and Herat, people adapt differently. Markets begin filling before sunrise as shopkeepers pull open heavy metal doors and sweep dust from sidewalks damaged by years of conflict. Street vendors push carts through traffic selling kebabs, roasted nuts, green tea, and fresh bread wrapped in cloth to keep warm during cold mornings. Mechanics repair Soviet-era cars using handmade tools and spare parts pulled from scrap heaps because imported equipment is too expensive. In crowded bazaars, electricians, blacksmiths, carpet weavers, and woodcarvers continue working inside small workshops lit by weak bulbs and noisy generators during power outages. Even in neighborhoods damaged by war, life moves constantly. Boys climb rooftops to fly kites over buildings, scarred by bullet holes and broken concrete. People in Afghanistan grow up adapting to a land that can be both beautiful and unforgiving. In the mountains of the Hindu Kush, shepherds wake long before sunrise and guide goats across narrow stone paths carved into cliffs hanging above deep valleys. During winter, snow can bury entire roads for weeks, forcing villagers to survive on whatever food and fuel they stored before the cold arrived. Families spend months drying apricots, stacking firewood, and filling small rooms with sacks of rice, flour, and tea. Because once the mountain passes close, help from the outside world may not come at all. In remote villages, daily life still depends heavily on manual labor. Women walk to icy rivers carrying metal containers for water because many homes have no plumbing. Clay ovens burn dried animal fuel to bake naan bread every morning, while smoke escapes through holes cut into mud roofs. Farmers dig irrigation canals by hand to move water through dry valleys where rain rarely falls. On steep hillsides, they carve terraces into the mountains to grow wheat, almonds, grapes, and potatoes in soil that barely supports farming. During harvest season, entire families, including children, work from sunrise until darkness because losing crops could mean hunger during winter. Men gather inside tea houses late into the night, drinking green tea while discussing politics, family problems, and local news as smoke fills the room. During winter blackouts, families huddle around coal stoves wrapped in blankets while children finish homework under dim lantern light. Water shortages, unreliable electricity, and damaged roads are part of ordinary life in many places, yet people continue adjusting around those problems every day. Afghanistan's environment forces people to become resourceful. Broken machinery is repaired instead of thrown away. Old cars stay on the roads for decades. Scrap metal becomes tools, heaters, or replacement parts. In some rural areas, homes are still built from mud, straw, and stone because those materials keep rooms cooler in summer and warmer during freezing winters. Entire communities often work together to repair roads, clear snow, or rebuild damaged homes after floods and earthquakes because outside assistance can take weeks to arrive. But despite decades of war and hardship, Afghanistan never feels lifeless. Markets remain crowded with bargaining voices and the smell of spices drifting through the air. Farmers still wake before dawn to work fields surrounded by snow-covered mountains. Truck convoys still crawl through dangerous passes, carrying livestock and goods across the country. Children still chase soccer balls through dusty streets, while the evening call to prayer echoes across valleys and rooftops. Afghanistan is not only shaped by conflict, it is shaped by adaptation. Every part of daily life, from storing food for winter to traveling dangerous mountain roads, is connected to survival. And maybe that is the side of Afghanistan the world rarely sees. Millions of ordinary people constantly adjusting to mountains, isolation, harsh weather, and instability while continuing to live, work, raise families, and move forward no matter how difficult life becomes. The landscape of Afghanistan changes constantly, almost as if the country cannot decide what it wants to become. Roads leaving Kabul climb into steep grey ridges where loose rock falls onto narrow highways and deep ravines open beside the tires of passing trucks. In winter, snow gathers along the mountain passes, while cold fog settles between the cliffs, hiding entire villages until sunrise. Frozen rivers cut through the valleys below, their surfaces edged with ice, while smoke rises from small mud brick homes pressed against the hillsides. In some mountain regions, the air becomes thin enough that sound seems quieter. Villages stand isolated beside rivers, connected by dirt roads that can disappear entirely after heavy snow or landslides. Heat rises from the ground in visible waves while dust blows across open highways lined with rusted fuel stations, broken Soviet machinery, and abandoned checkpoints. In some places, the land feels endless flat earth stretching toward distant mountains blurred by heat and sand. Villages here are built low to the ground, using clay and stone almost identical in color to the surrounding terrain, making entire communities blend into the hills around them. Then, without warning, green valleys appear between the dry landscapes, In Bamyan, wheat fields and potato farms spread across flat land beneath enormous cliffs carved with caves and ancient ruins. Narrow irrigation canals carry cold mountain water through the fields while children ride bicycles beside dirt roads lined with poplar trees. During sunset, the cliffs turn orange and deep red while long shadows move across the valley floor. Nearby, the lakes of Bande Amir cut through the dry terrain in deep shades of blue and turquoise, their water sitting still beneath pale limestone ridges and yellow grass bending in the wind. Farther northeast, near the Wakhan corridor in Afghanistan, the land becomes even more remote. Rivers flow through wide valleys surrounded by towering snow-covered peaks stretching into the clouds, their slopes covered in rock, ice, and patches of thin grass moving in the wind. The roads narrow into rough dirt tracks running beside freezing streams, sometimes disappearing completely beneath landslides or snow. The sky there feels unusually open pale blue during the day and filled with stars at night so bright they reflect faintly against the rivers below. Small stone houses stand alone across the valleys with almost no signs of modern infrastructure around them. Smoke rises from chimneys into the cold air while herds of yaks move slowly through open grassland beside icy water. In many places, there are no streetlights, no paved roads, and no phone signal. The only sounds come from rivers cutting through stone, animals moving across the hills, or wind pushing through narrow mountain passes. Travel through these regions often feels slow and uncertain. Wooden bridges cross fast-moving rivers while old trucks struggle along rocky roads carved into cliffs. Some villages remain cut off for weeks during winter when snow blocks the mountain routes. Supplies arrive by donkey, horse, or small vehicles carrying sacks of flour, fuel, and tea through valleys surrounded by walls of stone and ice. In some places, the mountains feel so large and empty that human settlements appear temporary against them. As the land stretches south toward the cities, the environment changes again. Kabul spreads across a dry basin, surrounded by barren hills, covered with loose rock and unfinished concrete buildings. The city feels crowded and dusty, with homes climbing uneven slopes, connected by narrow roads and tangled electrical wires hanging overhead. Old taxis, motorcycles, and overloaded trucks push through traffic, while street vendors stand beside carts selling bread, fruit, tea, and roasted corn beneath faded signs and patched metal roofs. During winter, smoke from coal fires settles over Kabul in a thick grey layer that hangs between the buildings until late afternoon. The cold air traps the smoke close to the streets while people walk through it, wrapped in shawls and heavy coats. Other cities carry their own atmosphere shaped by geography and climate. In Herat, Older neighborhoods are filled with mud-colored walls, blue-tiled mosques, and narrow streets where motorcycles squeeze past handcarts loaded with vegetables and sacks of grain. Kandahar feels hotter and flatter, surrounded by dry land and long roads disappearing into desert. In Mazar-e-Sharif, open streets and markets sit beneath wide skies, while blue-domed shrines rise above the city center, surrounded by pigeons and crowded bazaars. And in the middle of all that harsh terrain, daily life in Afghanistan is often made up of very ordinary moments. Before sunrise, bakery workers begin kneading dough inside small rooms warmed by clay ovens. They press rounds of naan against the hot walls of the oven using quick movements learned from years of repetition. Outside, men wait quietly in jackets covered with dust, holding stacks of fresh bread wrapped in cloth, as steam rises into the cold morning air. By the time the streets begin filling with traffic, the smell of bread and coal smoke has already spread through the neighborhood. As the morning continues, shopkeepers unlock metal shutters and sweep dirt from the front of their stores with worn brooms. In open-air markets, fruit sellers arrange pomegranates, melons, grapes, and apricots into careful piles while flies circle above trays of dates and nuts. Tea sellers place kettles over small gas burners that stay lit all day long. Glass cups move constantly between tables, green tea poured, sugar cubes dropped in, spoons tapping softly against the glass. Men sit shoulder to shoulder inside tea houses, discussing road conditions, fuel prices, politics, relatives living abroad, or simply the weather in the mountains. In smaller workshops, people work quietly for hours at a time. Tailors lean over old sewing machines, repairing torn jackets, sandals, backpacks, and school uniforms instead of replacing them. Mechanics sit on concrete floors surrounded by scattered engine parts, repairing cars that have been running for decades. Some garages have no doors, only fabric hanging over the entrance to block dust from blowing inside. Nearby, boys carry tools, wipe grease from their hands, and watch older workers closely, learning the trade simply by standing beside them every day. In many neighborhoods, children fill the streets after school. Some kick soccer balls through narrow alleys lined with mud walls and parked motorcycles. Others fly kites from rooftops, while younger kids chase each other through piles of gravel and broken concrete left from unfinished construction. During winter, children warm their hands over small fires built from scrap wood and cardboard. In mountain villages, groups of boys sometimes walk home together across dirt paths carrying notebooks under their arms while sheep move slowly beside the road. Inside family homes, routines stay simple. Shoes are left outside the room before people sit down on thin carpets spread across the floor. Meals are often shared from large metal trays placed in the center of the room. Rice, naan bread, yogurt, lentils, tea, sometimes meat when families can afford it. People eat slowly while conversation moves between relatives, neighbors, and children running in and out of the room. In homes with unreliable electricity, lanterns, or battery-powered lights, replace ceiling bulbs once the power cuts out. During cold nights, families gather around coal stoves while kettles boil quietly nearby. In rural villages, many everyday tasks still require physical labor. Women wash clothes beside rivers flowing through the valleys, while children fill buckets with water to carry home. Farmers return from fields at sunset, carrying tools over their shoulders, while donkeys loaded with wood or sacks of grain follow behind them. Some families spend evenings repairing walls made from mud and straw before winter rain arrives. Others sit outside drinking tea while neighbors stop to talk before darkness settles across the valley. Roadside restaurants and tea stalls become busy after dark. Truck drivers crossing long mountain highways stop to eat rice and kebabs beneath weak fluorescent lights before continuing through dangerous passes at night. Even the quiet moments feel personal and close. A shopkeeper folding blankets before closing his store. A boy carrying bread home with both hands to keep it warm. An old man sitting outside a tea shop warming his palms around a glass cup. Women shaking dust from carpets hung over courtyard walls. Mechanics washing grease from their arms with cold water poured from plastic containers. Small routines repeated every day, often without hurry. And despite decades of war, economic struggle, and uncertainty, these ordinary moments continue with remarkable consistency. Bread still comes out of the ovens before dawn. Markets still grow louder by midday. Tea is still poured from one glass to another, while conversations stretch late into the evening. Children still laugh in dusty streets, while radios play softly from nearby shops. Most of life in Afghanistan is not dramatic at all. It is people cooking, carrying water, fixing engines, folding clothes, walking home before dark, and trying to move through another ordinary day as normally as possible. One of the most recognizable parts of life in Afghanistan is the traditional Afghan house built from mud, straw, wood, and stone. In many rural areas, homes are not designed to stand out from the landscape. Instead, they are built to survive it. Thick mud walls help block the intense summer heat during the day and keep warmth trapped inside during freezing winter nights. From a distance, entire villages can almost disappear into the mountains because the houses share the same dusty brown color as the surrounding hills and cliffs. Most homes are built around a private courtyard, hidden behind plain outer walls. From the street, the buildings often look closed and quiet, with few windows facing outside. But inside, the courtyards become the center of daily life. Children run across the packed earth, while chickens wander between buckets of water and stacks of firewood. Women wash clothes, prepare bread dough, or hang carpets in the sunlight to remove dust collected during the week. In warmer months, families gather there late in the evening after the heat fades, drinking tea while neighbors stop by to talk before nightfall. Flat rooftops are also used constantly, especially during summer. During the day, blankets, carpets, and washed clothes are spread across the roofs beneath the dry sunlight while children move between neighboring rooftops without ever touching the street below. In crowded villages, rooftops almost become another shared living space. Women shake dust from carpets over the edges, while sacks of wheat, onions, and dried herbs are left outside to air in the heat. During harvest season, families spread grapes, apricots, or mulberries across large cloth sheets to dry under the sun for winter storage. At night, the rooftops change completely. In warmer months, many families carry thin mattresses, pillows, and blankets upstairs because the rooms inside the house trap too much heat after sunset. In some mountain regions, the air becomes cold enough after dark that families wrap themselves in thick blankets while stars fill the sky above them with almost no city lights visible. During winter, those same rooftops become part of survival. Firewood, dried animal fuel, sacks of rice, and bundles of straw are stacked carefully against the walls before heavy snow arrives. After snowstorms, people climb onto the roofs carrying shovels or wooden boards to clear away the weight before it damages the mud walls underneath. In villages built along steep slopes, rooftops often sit level with the paths above them, allowing neighbors to walk across connected roofs while snow blocks the narrow streets below. Inside the homes, carpets cover nearly every floor. Shoes are usually removed at the entrance, leaving rows of sandals and dusty boots beside the doorway before people step into the main room. Thick woven rugs in deep red, dark blue, black, and brown patterns stretch wall to wall across the floor, softening rooms built from stone, clay, or concrete. Most daily life happens directly on these carpets. Families sit cross-legged there to eat meals, pour tea, talk with visitors, repair clothing, help children with schoolwork, or simply rest after long days outside. Large furniture is often limited. Instead of beds and couches filling the rooms, thin mattresses and folded blankets are stacked neatly against the walls during the day and spread across the carpets at night. In colder regions, the rugs also help insulate the rooms from freezing floors during winter. Some carpets are old enough that their colors have faded unevenly from years of use, while others remain bright and carefully protected for guests and special occasions. Many of these carpets are handmade through work that can take months or even years to complete. In some villages, women and girls spend long afternoons sitting beside wooden looms inside dim rooms lit by small windows or weak bulbs connected to generators. Their hands move quickly and repeatedly, tying thousands of tiny knots while conversations continue quietly around them. Younger girls learn by watching older relatives, memorizing patterns that have been repeated within the same families for generations. Tea houses serve a similar role outside the home. In cities and villages alike, men gather there throughout the day to rest, talk, or escape cold weather. Drivers crossing mountain highways often stop at roadside tea stalls late at night, warming their hands around hot glasses before continuing through dangerous passes in darkness and snow. Food itself is also closely tied to daily routine. Large plates of rice are often placed in the center of the room, with naan bread arranged around them. Families eat together by hand, while children move in and out of the room. In wealthier homes, dishes may include kebabs, lamb, yogurt, and spiced rice filled with raisins and carrots. In poorer villages, meals are usually simpler: bread, tea, soup, beans, potatoes, or rice, shared between large families seated close together on the floor. What makes these traditions memorable is how practical they are. The mud walls exist because they protect against heat and cold. The carpets keep rooms warm during harsh winters. Courtyards provide privacy in crowded neighborhoods. Tea slows conversations in a country where people often spend long periods waiting, traveling, or living without reliable electricity and modern convenience. These customs were shaped over centuries by climate, geography, and survival, and they still remain part of ordinary life today. And maybe that is why visitors remember them so clearly. Not because they feel staged or dramatic, but because they feel lived in. A kettle boiling quietly beside a coal stove. Dust shaking from carpets in a courtyard. Bread cooling beside a clay oven. Families sitting together on the floor. While snow falls outside thick mud walls. Small details that reveal how closely everyday life in Afghanistan is connected to tradition, environment, and the rhythm of daily survival. Life in Afghanistan has been shaped for decades by war, economic hardship, political change, and isolation, but for many people, those struggles exist quietly beside ordinary daily routines rather than replacing them completely. In some regions, roads remain damaged from conflicts that ended years ago. Electricity may disappear several times a day. Families often prepare carefully for winter because fuel, food, and medicine can become difficult to access once snow blocks mountain roads. In rural villages, hospitals and schools may be hours away, reached only by dirt paths or rough roads, crossing steep valleys and dry plains. Even during difficult work, talking never fully disappears. Voices travel softly between tents, while the mountains slowly brighten around them. As the sun slowly climbs higher, the entire camp becomes more active. Dogs bark sharply, as herds begin moving toward open hillsides covered with grass and scattered wildflowers. Some women pack food into cloth bags for family members who will spend the day farther up the mountains. Multiple generations often share the same small home because moving elsewhere is too expensive. In rural areas, people continue rebuilding damaged walls, irrigation canals, and roads using mostly their own labor because outside assistance arrives slowly or not at all. daily routines continue with remarkable consistency. Bakers still wake before dawn to prepare bread. Markets still become crowded by midday with the sound of bargaining voices, traffic, and metal shop doors opening one after another. Farmers still guide animals across dry hillsides, while children walk dusty roads carrying notebooks beneath their arms. Weddings still fill homes with music, conversation, and long meals shared between relatives. Families still gather around tea late into the evening, while generators hum outside during blackouts. What keeps many communities connected is not necessarily politics or institutions, but older structures built around family, language, tribe, religion, and local tradition. In a country where governments and borders have changed repeatedly across generations, people often place stronger trust in relatives, neighbors, and local customs than in distant authorities. Traditions become a form of continuity. Carpet patterns are woven the same way they were decades earlier. Recipes pass from parents to children without being written down. Stories about migration, war, weather, and family history continue moving between generations during long evenings spent together on the floor around tea and food. There is also a strong culture of adaptation woven into everyday life. Broken objects are repaired again and again instead of replaced. Old cars remain on the roads for decades because mechanics know how to rebuild engines from spare parts and scrap metal. Clothes are patched and resewn rather than thrown away. Mud brick homes damaged by rain, earthquakes, or fighting are repaired slowly using the same materials available from the surrounding land. In some places, bullet holes remain visible in walls beside shops that continue operating normally each day. Migration has also become part of many Afghan families' lives. Some relatives leave for Iran, Pakistan, Europe, or the Gulf states looking for work, while others stay behind, caring for homes and land. Phone calls, money transfers, and visits during holidays become ways of holding families together across long distances. In villages and cities alike, it is common to hear conversations about sons working abroad, cousins trying to cross borders, or relatives returning home after years away. Movement, separation, and return have shaped family life for generations. But despite hardship, there is very little dramatic language in the way many people approach daily life. Most routines continue quietly. Tea is still poured for visitors. Carpets are still beaten clean in courtyards. Shopkeepers still open stores every morning, even when business is slow. During winter blackouts, families sit close to coal stoves, telling stories while snow collects outside. In summer, children still fly kites from rooftops, while traffic and market noise drift through the streets below. What stands out most is not heroism in the usual sense, but endurance built into ordinary habits. People continue planting crops even after droughts. Drivers continue crossing dangerous mountain roads because supplies still need to move between towns. Parents continue sending children to school despite uncertainty about the future. Families continue holding weddings, preparing meals, repairing homes, and gathering together during holidays because those routines create stability in a place where larger conditions often feel unstable. And maybe that is part of what gives Afghanistan its deeper identity. Not only its wars or political history, but the quieter persistence underneath them. A country where daily life continues through interruption after interruption. Where traditions survive not because they are preserved formally, but because people continue practicing them every day without thinking much about it. Bread baked before sunrise, tea poured into small glasses, shoes left outside the room, carpets rolled out across the floor for guests. These small actions may seem ordinary, but together they create continuity across generations that have lived through invasion, migration, poverty, drought, and conflict. In Afghanistan, survival is rarely spoken about in dramatic terms. Most of the time, it simply looks like people continuing to live as normally as they can, even when conditions around them remain uncertain. And maybe that is what stays with people after leaving Afghanistan, not only the mountains, the dust, the crowded markets, or the long history of war, but the quiet feeling of life continuing underneath all of it. Bread still baking before sunrise, while smoke rises slowly from clay ovens. Tea still being poured from old metal kettles into small glass cups, while conversations stretch late into the evening. Children still laughing in narrow streets, while cold wind moves through the hills beyond the city. There is something understated about the way people continue living there. Most of it does not look dramatic from the outside. It is shopkeepers unlocking metal shutters every morning, even when business is slow. Farmers walking dry fields beneath grey mountains, while irrigation water moves slowly through narrow canals, dug generations earlier. Mechanics repairing engines part by part because replacing them is impossible. Families gathering on carpets at night, while generators hum outside during another power outage. In many places, signs of conflict remain visible in everyday life. Bullet marks still cover some walls. Half-finished buildings stand beside busy roads. Old Soviet machinery rusts near highways, while damaged tanks sit abandoned outside villages. Some families have relatives living abroad because work is difficult to find at home. Others continue rebuilding houses destroyed years earlier, repairing walls little by little with mud, stone, and wood gathered nearby. Yet most conversations are not about war itself. More often, they are about weather, work, school, marriage, fuel prices, or whether the winter will be harsh this year. And perhaps that is what lingers most in the end. Not simply the hardship, but the persistence of ordinary life inside it.